Hello there, welcome back to another review. God, it seems like ages ago since I reviewed the original Ring movie, and as you guys probably know, I do get around to these things eventually. I said I was going to look at the subsequent Ring movies in the awesome world of J-horror, so here we go for my Ring 2 review, made back in 1999 and directed by Hideo Nakata. Now, it's very interesting, this one, because it can be a bit confusing for the uninitiated. Now, Ring was originally a novel by Koji Suzuki, and there was a sequel to that called Spiral, which was actually adapted into a film and served as the sequel to Ring, and I think it was originally released at the same time as that first movie, even though it has different director and screenwriters, and believe me, that does show. However, the movie did not do well, and it's almost like the forgotten sequel to Ring, which I will review for you guys eventually. But anyway, a new Ring sequel was created, and that's what we're going to be looking at here today. Now, although you could argue this is sort of the official sequel to the original Ring movie, it's not based on any of Suzuki's work. Now, sequels are never an easy thing to do. You have to give the audience something fresh and new, but at the same time it needs to be familiar and build on what the previous movie offered and set up. So a sequel to Ring, bearing in mind how huge that film was at the time, I mean, at the time it was like the horror film to watch. You know, have you seen Ring? It was never going to be an easy thing to do, but as I say, Ring was absolutely massive when it came out, as I say, but it was never going to be easy. Like, to do a sequel to that ticks all the right boxes and was better was never going to be simple. Now, although the film is good, I always felt it could have been better, largely because it has a different feel to the original Ring movie. It's still set in that universe, of course, but the beats, the scares, the pacing and everything is just a bit different. Now, there are some good moments in the movie and some genuine scares, but it just doesn't compare to that original for me. This is the problem sometimes when you have a huge success and you make such an iconic film. It's like, how do we follow that up? Now, these movies as well, they don't hold your hand in terms of plot. They either assume you know things, or something that was just said fleetingly in like dialogue or a piece of conversation ends up becoming a huge plot point, you know, sort of as the film goes on. So they can in a way, sometimes they can unintentionally or unnecessarily become a bit confusing if you aren't sort of paying attention. What I do like with this movie, however, is that it starts exactly where the original ended, and I love it when movies do that, where they pick up exactly where the previous installment ended, and you can just go straight on in and carry on with the story. I will say this film also has less tension than the first movie, and it doesn't seem as unsettling as the first either. So we meet Mr. Yamamura, who has been summoned to identify a body, and we're reminded of Sadako was in a well and was sealed away 30 years ago in Dr. Akuma's estate. Quite freaky as he sees some hair growing from the body and wants her burnt. The autopsy reveals that she only died a couple of years ago. So a woman turns up at the reporter's room looking for Riko, assuming you know all these people are from the first movie. We're reminded of the video curse and that her ex-husband Takayama died, which all links to the end of the first movie. They go to Riko's apartment, the music goes all sinister, we see the TV smash, and I do believe there is a Super Nintendo there as well. See these little things that I noticed? They find a burnt videotape in the bathroom. Takayama's assistant Mei and Okazaki, Riko's colleague, they get a phone call that Riko's father has been found dead, to which the police find a note of his saying he got rid of the video. As I say, what I do love about this movie, or any movie that does this, is when they pick up immediately, like sort of where the previous film ended, so you can just carry straight on in. So Riko's son, we learn, has not been in school for 10 days. Detective Fumuta wants to know where Riko is. Okazaki is interviewing someone to get a copy of the tape. We learn again of the niece of Riko, who died at the start of the first movie, if you remember that scene, and that her friend Kurahashi is in hospital. So they go there and she won't watch TV, and that all her admittance photos have some kind of figure lurking over her. Sadako appears and everyone starts freaking out at this place. After Mei touches her, she gets like this vision. Okazaki wants to continue Riko's story. Mei returns home and thinks she sees some hands on the balcony. We get some flashbacks of her talking to Takayama. She randomly finds this lost boy after hearing the name Yoichi and meets Riko. Yoichi at this point is not speaking, so Okazaki gets a copy of the tape. Yoichi writes down about the woman with long hair after being asked why he was at the station. So back at the hospital, we learn that Kurahashi can sort of focus on water, so it's absorbed more by paper, and like they're doing these experiments and some kind of sort of energy transfer or something like that. So they begin this experiment, and so far they start this experiment, and so far the film has just not had that eeriness to it as much as the first movie. It's almost, dare I say it, too scientific rather than being like supernatural, but it just doesn't have that sense of dread and fear about it as much as the first movie. So Mei blacks out after the experiment sort of goes south, so they've all sort of seen the tape now at this point, the detective, the doctor, etc. As she sort of projects her mental imagery imagery or something like that. So it's sort of like the idea of having someone's intention as a living entity is sort of the gimmick here, and I think that's quite a cool idea. So Otuma, the detective, learns the location of Riko and Yoichi. Mei has like this shining thing going on and tells Yoichi to run. Suddenly, with just one glance, can make the detective like sort of stop in his tracks. Riko gets a vision. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of visions in this movie. People having visions explaining that her son is not her son anymore. And out of nowhere, his mum just, gets run over by a truck. Out of nowhere, which to be honest I never saw coming. So yeah, Yoichi has like force powers at this point. Then we have probably the freakiest scene in the movie up to this point anyway, when Okazaki is watching back an interview that he had with the girl who gave him the tape, and because she watched the tape and her face like blurs when she shakes her head, and it's because it's so unexpected and because of the way it's done. Like the figure appears and just stares right at him, and it's really cool scene. So yeah, Riko sort of gets run over. I mean, did the driver get out? Was it reported? Was there any witnesses? I mean, she just got run over, people. So Mei is now looking for Yoichi. Freaky too when they try and reconstruct Sadako's face and take photos, and the eyes sort of change when the flash goes off. Meanwhile, Mei and Yoichi travel and look for where Yamamura and Shizuku live. That's Sadako's mum, which they learn from a driver, and they go to the Yamamura Inn. And what the film does, it does go over things. Like if you found the first one confusing in places, this film does actually try to make more sense of it for you. It rather than just sort of carrying on, we won't reference the first movie at all. This film actually does. It's sort of almost like, okay, if you found the first movie confusing, we'll try our best to sort of explain things again, sort of as the film goes on. We're trying to make it make sense for you. Like it tries to keep it nice and neat in a bubble or framework, which actually works rather than the film being too outlandish. So the detective, the doctor, Okazaki and Kurohashi at the hospital, she's at the hospital, they've all sort of gone out the window at this stage in the movie. We learn of the cave where Sadako was born. Then we get another wonderful eerie scene where they see Shizuku sort of combing her hair as in the video, and a young Sadako, and the way she sort of disappears and the way she sort of peeks out from behind the wall grinning. Absolutely great stuff. So the doctor meets Yoichi and does all his classic, he does his classic water test on him, and the thing absorbs like crazy, and he tells him to think of his mother. It's sort of anger that summons it apparently and makes the powers more pronounced. The doctor gets his equipment and they use a swimming pool to hopefully absorb all of this evil energy out of him. And not to take anything away from Miki, I think it's Takanaka as Mei in this movie, I just don't think as a character and lead I was invested as much as I was with Riko in the first movie. Mei spends most of the movie basically just looking scared or bewildered anyway. Anyway, she agrees to act as sort of a conduit, and it's nice that our two leads from the first movie do appear in this one as well. So they try and annoy the boy to bring out the evil spirit, and it's quite spooky too when the water sort of changes, with Mei saying she can sort of see into the next world. Eerie too as well when Sadako's coffin appears, and Yamamura wants her to kill him to sort of end all this. The doctor electrocutes himself. Like I say, the film does have its moments, it's just not as classic nor as memorable as that original Ring movie. After everything goes black, Yoichi and Mei are sort of hanging in the well, and we get a voice with that classic line saying "Frolicking brine, goblins be mine." Ryuji's ghost appears and takes away Yoichi's fears, sort of his dad sort of takes away his fears. They start to climb out, however Sadako starts climbing the walls and asks, "Why are you the only one saved?" They awake in the swimming pool. Yamamura is dead, Yoichi is back to normal, and at least they didn't forget about Okazaki, as we learn he is in hospital. And I'm pleased they didn't forget about Kaneiva, who was that was the woman he got the tape from, as we see her spirit sort of behind him. It's quite a freaky little end scene there. And like I say, it does have its moments, and as a sequel, it does tick the boxes it needs to do. It just doesn't add anything outlandishly new to the franchise, but I think it serves its purpose okay. But make sure to let me know, guys, what you think. Are you a fan of the movie, or do you think nothing will ever beat the original? But let me know what your thoughts are on Ring 2. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.